Okay. Hello and welcome to Being Human Hidden Depths by Collaboration Global. My name is Jill Tiny. I'm the founder of Collaboration Global, and this podcast is about helping you to understand our members more because they're all extraordinary. And I'm very pleased to say that this week we have the extraordinary Simon Drew guesting for us. Welcome, Simon. Lovely to have you here.
Hey Jill, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. The sun is shining. Spring is just around the corner. We're getting closer. The days are getting longer and the nights are getting shorter. So it's all going in the right direction. Simon, this is exciting because you and I have had several conversations, and actually we go back quite a long way. In good old B&I days. And whilst we thought we knew each other from those times, actually we've gone a lot deeper more recently and have learned a lot about each other. So I'm really excited today to share what I know about you, but also to share with everybody else some more about you so they can get a better idea. But first and foremost, as I ask everybody when we start, you're now a member of Collaboration Global. What drew you to the community? What was it that made you go, I think I need to be part of this?
It's the richness of the kind of humanity approach of what you do. I'm very much aware that things are, like all of us, I'm sure, are very aware. Things are very strange right now, and for many years I've had a kind of, if you like, an ecocentric, human kind of ethical view of who we are as humans on the planet, and felt there was a better way of doing things in many areas of the life that we all lead, especially in the Western world, and even now kind of global. Really, we're all affected by a lot of the stuff that's going on. So I, having now gone through a series of very big changes in my own personal life in the last sort of 5 or 6 years since I first met you, of course, I've become at one with my own views and how I want to be perceived and the work that there is for me to do. There's a lot of work for me to do, both helping humans in all the ways that they need assistance to kind of get through the difficult lives they have right now, just as I did. And actually the planet needs a bit of love and attention as well. And a bit is a massive underestimation.
Yeah. You can't do it all on your own. You're not the Superman.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think knowing that you, having been in the group now from a month or two, and certainly been, starting to, shall we say, get involved relatively heavily in the way things are happening here. I'm really starting to feel like a part of a community that is like-minded, and that is definitely your aim. I know, having spoken to you at length about this, and so I'm really excited to be part of the community and help shift it into something that actually does really have a really big impact in some way or form, which some of which is we won't know what that is for a while. But being in a space where I can communicate and generate ideas and be actively assisting both members and connections to members, and facilitating some of the more specific stuff, which we'll probably get into later. I feel like I'm part of a community that is really enabling things to move in the right direction, basically. So.
Yeah, I think many of us who've got this kind of calling to make an impact on the world, make an impact just in your region, in your field, in your industry, whatever it happens to be. When you're kind of on your own, it feels like it's a mammoth task. And it's like, oh, what can I do? Oh, it's almost like, why do I bother? I'm never going to make that much of a difference. But as soon as you join up with other people that are also really excited about what they can achieve and what they want to do, and there's the determination and there's the integrity around how they're coming together, you feel like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not on my own. I've got this lot behind me that are going to help. And even when I'm feeling grumpy, that's okay too, because they're going to cheer me up and they're going to help me get back on my feet and carry on going. And then if it's going great, they're going to celebrate with me and they're going to cheer with me. And if I need ideas, I've got someone to go to. So for me, being a one-man band, I mean, I've got various businesses, but the coaching business is a one-man band. And when you're starting that up, it can be quite lonely. And it can be quite difficult to go, is this the right thing to do? I'm not really sure. So to have someone that you can, and by the way, anyone listening, there is no right or wrong. There is no right thing to do in business. It's just the right thing for you at the time that you do it. And we can't all say, 100%, oh, you should do, this is the thing you should do. We need to weigh things up. And when you have other people around that have been through that kind of circle a few times, and they've been in business for a little while, and they tried stuff out, to hear their experiences helps you to come to those decisions. And so to have you here, and what was also lovely for me is not only have you joined, but you've got joined and put your hand up, going, yep, I'll help. That, well, I can do that. That's something. Get over here. I'm over here, and you've stepped up straight away with a talent and a skill and a passion at the perfect time that we need it as we're growing the community. And that's not a coincidence. There is no coincidence in Collaboration Global. It's a universe incidence, and you've been put here for reasons. So whilst there's your business that you're doing, there's your passion that you are living, and then there's us, and it's all combined. It's all like perfect time, perfect place, perfect experience coming together. So I think this is, we cannot underestimate the power that we have a job to do. And we can't let life and triviality and the minutiae get in the way, because we all have a passion, a calling on our heart to make this difference. So I'm really excited from what you've done so far, from what we're going to be doing together, and how we're learning from each other all the time. There's going to be stuff that you're going to be learning and we're going to be learning, and mutual admiration society going on right here.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and I'm definitely doing the right thing, by the way, just so you know.
Well, you're doing it right, and I'm doing it right. So there is.
What are some of the things you said there about coming from your purpose, coming from your heart, and actually for me, one of the reasons really I've done so much self-development stuff with various coaching programs over the last couple of years, which have been in some diverse areas, some more specific. But definitely what I became aware of probably late 2019 was that I started to experience like synchronistic events more than I'd ever noticed before. And it's really interesting because there are some things even I can see that I'm aware of that are not right for now. And we talked about, for instance, about Clubhouse just before this. It's not right for me to do that stuff now. But 3-4 months, maybe next week, who knows? But it's not right now. I shouldn't waste my time with that. I've got more important business to do right now. But I've had a whole succession of literally synchronistic events. And with yourself and the group that you're part of, I think I've been in your Facebook group maybe for well over a year. But I wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right place either. It wasn't right for me a year ago. But I just happened to go through some particular event like in middle of November, and suddenly it felt like the right place to be. So that's when I got in touch with you. And I think if you've never experienced that as a human in your life, you're probably not quite in purpose, if you know what I'm saying. It's kind of like, and I'd never you could have, if you'd have talked to me about this a year ago, even I'd have gone maybe 2 years ago. But no, you're talking nonsense. I've heard of I think I even read a book called Synchronicity Effect or something about 20 years ago. I don't know when it was. But I was aware of it being like a phenomena, and I've started to experience it. And I think it's literally because I've literally found my calling, what I now clarify as like a purpose. And you're just right. One of my phrases on my wall here, I've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, indeed. I was, funny enough, I was saying this to somebody just this morning about the synchronicity that is around Collaboration Global. Because when we used to meet face to face with people, quite often our guests would say to us like, oh, what a coincidence that I've met you here. Or, oh, what a coincidence that this has happened over there. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, wow, we have a lot of coincidences, don't we? And as time went on, we just expected them. So when people said, oh, what a coincidence, we're like, no, this is what happens here.
Yeah, it's just like energy. The energy is right. Yeah.
And the last meeting we had, which was one of our largest meetings, there was, 50 odd people in the room, and we all went into our breakout rooms. And afterwards, when we had a little chat session, there were about 3 or 4 people that said, oh boy, was I in the right 3. Those people were just right for me. And that's happened about probably 6 times, no word of a lie, 6 times since then, I've spoken to people and they said, oh, it was an amazing 3. It was meant to be. It just happened. It was smooth. I knew so-and-so from years ago and we reconnected. And I'm like, it wasn't a coincidence. That's what happens around us all the time. The right people are in the right room for the right reason. And you have to be awake to it. And you have to listen and go, oh, okay, what are you telling me, universe? Okay, you've put this person in front of me and I'm seeing it. I can see it. It's, a coincidence. Not what, why? And then understanding. And as you say, if you've got your purpose in place, your alarm bells start going off. Woohoo, okay. So what are we going to do about it? And then you start being a collaborator in action and taking action around it. So it's,
there's that sense of flow state which comes out of then that's kind of, so that flow state is anything where you're focused on, can be on anything. You could be playing an instrument. You could be, for me, it used to be riding motorbikes rather quickly, and or doing a particular sport, or dancing, or singing. It flow state, and actually it comes into play, especially at the moment when you're in group situations. I believe even on Zoom, because we're not used to being around people, or especially around new people. And it's such a nice place to be, to communicate openly about what you're doing and what your purpose is, and you get energized. And there's a kind of, it's probably something to do with beta or alpha brain waves or something like that, because there's 5 levels of brain waves. 3 of them I think you have to be asleep, but I think
okay.
I can't remember exactly the exact things, but yeah, it's flow state is a magical place. And I think when you've got like-minded individuals like you have in the group, you're in a place of safety, compassion, where you can be heard, and you'll be listened to and supported, but with integrity and with a drive to get the best for you in the moment, not just, phone this guy.
Yes,
There's a
exactly.
sense of connectedness, which is what one of the reasons I was drawn to you, obviously, as I said earlier. So
it reminds me of that book, The Surrender Experiment, that we discussed last month on our Evolve session. We have a live session each month, which we talk either about a book or a film, or just a concept. And this was written by Michael Singer. And he says that basically when coincidences happen, he feels, obviously, he is awake to them. And he says you just have to surrender to it, and you just surrender and accept and see what happens, what the universe is sending you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true, because I've not actually read the book yet, Jill, and I didn't get involved in the book club. I've got so much going on with my which is
when the time is right.
but I suspect it might be a little bit like, that the saying yes experiment a bit, isn't it, where you force yourself to go into scenarios you probably would normally protect or not even care about doing. I don't know if it is, but I suspect it's akin to that. When something comes to you, accept it, walk into it with open arms and and consideration, and with your safety, obviously, but walk into it with an open approach, as opposed to pretending and pushing it away and just doing your thing, and almost narrow-mindedly carrying on with
because ultimately the philosophy is that the universe has a plan for you, and you just let it take over, and it will look after you. It's got your back. And whether the universe for you is God or Yahweh or Allah or whoever, whatever religion or faith or spirituality you adhere to, there is this energy that is us, the source, that is looking out for us. And I think when you do surrender, it takes the stress out of life. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I don't have to be in control of everything.
And I think, absolutely. And the super hyper stressed nature of being in that state, it's just, it's why to me, it's why people who, shall I say, aren't particularly self-aware really struggle with life at times, because they live more in the world of what right and wrong. So there is a way, and then there is the right way, the wrong way. And when it doesn't fit with their interpretation or their ruling, the way they perceive the world, suddenly they've got something to complain about. And even if they don't complain about it, they'll hold the stress of it being, oh, I'm in the wrong place, or I'm doing the wrong thing, or they're doing the wrong thing, and it's really annoying me. But
Yeah.
life just gets really difficult really quickly.
Yeah.
And
I
to be
mean,
honest, I was that person. You were probably that person as well at
oh,
one point,
absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. You know, the classic story that people talk about is when you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you up.
Yeah.
You know, I learned very early on, it's like, let them go. It's not, you know, it's not the end of the world. And my philosophy now is they probably need the loo. They're in a bit of a rush. And yet the amount of drivers I sit next to and somebody cuts them up, they're like, oh, for goodness sake, on the horn. Like, look, who's getting upset? They don't give a monkeys what you're doing here. They can't see you. They haven't got a clue that you're getting all angry.
Yeah.
Who's suffering? You're making yourself suffer.
It's really interesting you say that and bring up the driving thing, because and I related this as to a life skill when I did it, and I was into motorbiking when my kids were younger, and when I just before the kids arrived. In fact, I've been into motobiking since I was mid to late teens, and I did my advanced motorcycling test. And one of the things they do there is they teach you to have different. Certainly, the club that I used to train with. This sounds probably really irrelevant, but it's perfectly relevant. And that is, they teach you to drive to go. There'd be an easy level, kind of normal level, and then advanced level.
Right.
You can imagine the advanced is basically riding like a police motorcyclist, or being able to ride. And some people are probably watching this and go, they're not very good, but actually they're very highly trained.
Okay.
They may not ride like racing bike riders with they are organized and very organized, but you have levels of speed, and you drive appropriately to those levels. And you can only do that if you're self-aware and manage your fear and stress response.
Yes.
So it's literally a psychology exercise as well as a technical skill exercise in relationship to overtaking and being safe and avoiding hazards on the road and things like that. But actually, that was something I did before I did a load of work with Landmark Education, which we're both mutually aware of. And that in some ways, that was one of the things that got me in tune with myself a lot more. Because under stressful situations on the road, on a motorbike, it can be, it's very easy to get stressed and triggered. And because on a bike you're more invisible, and people can treat bikes like they're not there.
Yeah, and it must be scary in that situation, because you must feel so vulnerable.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, I don't now. Not that I've been on a bike for a few years now, but it's about awareness and self-control.
Yeah.
And it's very easy. The last bike I had would do 190 miles an hour if I wanted it
to. Oh, wow.
but that's kind of by the by, because I've never been that fast on it and never would, and not in this country anyway. But it's about perception and understanding, of what's really going in your mind and being aware. And oddly, that then directly takes me on to some of the self-defense work I did about 7 or 8 years ago with a coach from the States who came over and ran global sort of classes, and he's still active now in the States. But what self-defense is just avoiding the situation altogether. It's not fighting. It's a situation.
Yeah, and that makes such sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I did a police awareness course once when I used to work for the local government, because it was in the housing department and they wanted to keep us safe. So we did this, as you say, a self-defense thing, and it was all about, okay, you poke them in the eye, you run. You poke them in the throat, you run. You hit them here, you run. And in the end, it's like, okay, we run. Okay, we get it.
Yeah. And the main thing is just notice them over there 100 yards away and just run the other way before you get anywhere near them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's awareness again. It's literally the subtle awareness of you being out in a particular situation, or even coming home and there's a robber here. What do you do if there's you just turn around and walk down the drive and go and find the police around the corner. You don't go in unless you've got your kids or the dogs there or whatever. For me, with the dog, I'd be worried about the dog because this is the only other one here.
Well, listen, let's take it back a little bit, which I love to ask people, where sort of who are you, where are you from? If you go over to America, that's the first thing you generally get asked. They hear the English accent, they go, oh, so where are you from? So where were you born, and what was your childhood like when you were little, say 7 or 8? What was your dream at that point? What did you want to do when you grew up?
Okay, cool. So I was born in my family house. In fact, the back bedroom in the house, which is a 3-bedroom detached house, late 60s house in Spondon, Derby, near 4
Oh,
miles east of Derby.
lovely.
And my family we were relatively poor. My dad was an engineer at Rolls-Royce. My mum was, if she worked, she was a barmaid. And she was obviously primary parent, looking after us at home if dad was away at work, dad was at work. And yeah, I had a stressful childhood because my dad was actually kind of like a bit of an ogre,
Mm.
and caused a lot of stress. My mum was scared of him.
Oh.
I think probably even pre-birth, we were possibly even scared of my dad, because I think my mum was probably stressed with,
Mm.
being in the relationship at that time.
Mm.
And but I've started to uncover and remember some stuff about my childhood, and I remember a few things. So I remember my dad was really into cowboy and Indians film, and kind of classic kind of cowboy films.
John
I
Wayne.
remember, I can remember it now, black and white photograph of me and my Christmas day. It was snowing, stood on the front lawn in my full cowboy outfit
Ah,
with the silver kind of fake gun
yeah.
with the hat on and everything. That
Ah.
would be about 5 or 6, I think. And 7 or 8, what would I be doing then? I was really good at school, but I think I was really good at school because I was afraid of not being good enough for my dad. And,
Ah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. That makes sense.
um, and I played football as a kid. I was quite a chubby kid. Um, and I think probably 7 or 8, we'd probably just been through a period whereby my dad had been on strike, because it was around the time when the early 70s strikes were on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty scary, because I kind of remember the scary stuff I do. I'm not one for remembering wins, because everything was the negative perception of my whole life is to only remember the bad stuff and try and pretend
Mm-hmm.
it didn't happen.
Oh.
Um, so I remember not having much money. We literally would struggle to get food on the table, or the family would, and it was a bit scary.
Mm.
I remember the power cuts about that time as well. You might remember that
I
as
do
well.
indeed. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So it was not a happy childhood. I
Mm.
don't really remember much happiness really at all. Snippets come to life. I remember playing. We lived, the bedroom that I was born in backed on directly to a playing field, a recreation ground, the local rec in the village where I lived. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing with my dad. It was the summer. He got his shirt stripped off and a pair of jeans on, and we were having a great time playing football. But it's one of the rare times where I remember having a nice time with my dad.
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, it was a pretty tough childhood, but there were happy times.
Yeah. And you can always look back and think, or you probably have found many, many people since then have told you horrific stories of their childhood, and you think, huh, mine wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, the actual circumstances in many ways are actually irrelevant. It's just
mm,
because it's your perception. It's what your perception is of the circumstances and what reaction it has on you.
mm,
So we're all living organisms, and actually something happens and you literally get affected by it
mm,
if it's severe enough. And I think for me, I think what became my way of being human and this, not to take this, my way of acting as a human being was very much everything is rubbish, pretty much.
okay.
That was the kind of default position,
So you couldn't be
because nothing,
disappointed.
yeah, there was never ever really any sunlight on the horizon when I was growing up that was
Wow.
the way out of the situation.
Yeah.
um, and my default position was kind of down.
Okay.
You know? And my brother was the same. I've got two brothers. One's 2 years younger than me. The other one's about 9 years younger than me. And they both very much got affected, but in different ways. You know, and
Mm,
actually, you'll probably know this. You could put two exact same people, exactly almost stood next to each other, put them through the same experience from a blank canvas, not knowing what's going to happen,
mm,
and you'll get two completely different reactions, because
yeah.
they are different people. Whether you can, even twins would do the same thing.
Yep.
They'd probably be able to relate to the same thing, like feeling certain thing, but actually, if it's severe enough, they'll probably react in a slightly different way, as in the outcome over the coming years to a specific severe traumatic kind of event will be
Mm,
different,
mm.
because we're all kind of relatively, independent of our.
So were you the big brother then?
Yeah, I was the eldest. Yeah,
So
yeah.
did that have a play on how you um, grew up? Did you take your sort of big brother role seriously, or just like, oh well, I'm just one of the kids?
So one thing about me was I was a very shy kid. I know that. My brother was I say my brother, it was me, my 2-year younger brother, because we kind of grew up together. Paul,
Yeah.
his name is. We I used to be bigger than him, so his relationship to me is, and we've talked for a fair amount about this, is I apparently used to bully him, but I can't remember it. or I'd lock it. I remember apparently I locked him in the wardrobe once, and I remember we used to sort of fight in and out the bathroom door because it got a bolt on it, and there'd just be stuff would be going off, and that's just kind of brotherly love, or not love, but brotherly interaction, and I think arguably we were probably hyper stressed in a stress state because of where we were living and the situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily just the fact we're two young boys.
Have you said sorry to him for locking him in the
Yeah.
wardrobe?
Well, the thing is, for me, he remembers it because it was
He would do.
affected him. But this is what I mean about it. For me, it wasn't a negative necessarily because
You were
I was
having fun.
being victimized. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I was on the other end of it as well at certain times. But we and the thing is, for me, I remember he was provoking me, so he provoked me, as younger siblings often do. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just like, what the? And again, natural human stuff, because you don't know any better. And what else was I going to say? I can't remember what else I was going to say. I'll tell you one thing I did. This will give you some, and this may not sound relevant, but I wet the bed until I was 10.
Oh wow. But that's not unusual, is it? I don't think.
Well, to when you're 10 and doing it, it's it's very unusual.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
And probably your mother didn't have a washing machine, so life was
Yeah. And I lived a lot of my life on a plastic sheet with a cotton sheet on top, or even a nylon one. I think probably most of the time, which wasn't very comfortable. But those kind of things, to me, looking back now, I think that was because I was so stressed out and in that situation.
Yeah, you can forgive the younger you, can't you?
And I used to have specific nightmare of this big grey ball of almost like a brain with a pin chasing it.
Oh.
Really weird sort of thing, and I've never really understood what it was, but I've hypothesized a bit in recent years.
I bet. So there's the 8-year-old, and he's growing up, and he likes the game of football, and quite successful at school if you're working hard. When you left school, how old were you? 16, 18?
So I actually left comprehensive school, senior school, when I was 16, and I'd been lucky enough to not do what most of my compadres around me in my school year had done. I did something slightly different, which was great. I scraped in and got just effectively three O levels, having been a top student when I first went into senior school, because of the mental state of what happened to me, because I was not happy at all when I was 13. I was pretty much suicidal. In fact, I was suicidal at one point.
Yeah.
I'd gone down the hill after certain significant events happened around 10. And then by the end of the school, I just managed to scrape into art college. Right. And I wanted to study graphic design. The reason being that Adamant did it.
Oh, wow. I get that. Yeah. All the youngsters are going, who's Adamant?
Yeah.
Look him up. Google him. He's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what interestingly, he's had his own problems in life as well. Mental health specifically, and probably a few other things as well. But yeah, I was really into Adam and the Ants. I'd been through punk and all sorts of stuff in senior school, in school, kind of cyclical stuff. And then I went to art college for 2 years in Derby, and Derby Art College, or Derby School of Higher Education. I can't remember what it was. But, and then I did. I wanted to get to London in theory, and I went for an interview on the same day with my girlfriend at the time, and one of my also good buddies from the same village as me, Peter. And myself, Julie, and Peter drove us down, because I was already driving by this time, passed my test as soon as I could when I was 17, and drove us down to Epsom School of Art and Design. We all did an interview, and I was thinking, oh, I will get in. I was the only one that got in. And
I loved you.
Well, apparently, yeah. At that time, I really didn't love myself that much, to be honest. But I did all right, and I got in. Did 2 more years there, and effectively got a bachelor's degree because I'd done two, a normal diploma and a national, high national diploma. And then I'd got a local job for the summer after I finished there. And then I was interviewing for like proper graphic design jobs, and I got a job with a company called Cairns Design, which did mostly graphics for exhibition work. For at the time, people like ICI and sort of mostly sort of plastic-based companies at the time, which I've not got any kind of leeway in sort of choosing what we were doing at the time. I think we did stuff for IBM as well. Would you believe? Yeah, and I was there. I think was there. In fact, I might have had another job before then. Did I? No, that was my first job. I think I was there 18 months, 2 years, maybe a fraction longer. Then I got a job closer to town, working for a company where you're gonna laugh. This is a great podcast. Kurt, what's her name? Kurt. He's the Australian singer from the soap opera, from the
Kylie Minogue.
Kylie Minogue, yeah. So the guy that owned this particular company had a connection with that who's the producer behind it? I can't remember who it was. But he did Jason Donovan as well, and then he had that particular type.
Stop and Waterman.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so Waterman, I think it was. He had a connection with him. We did the album covers for their stuff, which is really yeah, which was just mostly photographic and a bit of text. And this is how when I first got introduced to Mac technology, so Apple Macs.
Yeah.
And it was when they were literally like what now some people have as fish tanks, just like a really tiny telly with a big, tall grey box and a disk drive. And so I learned to use. That's when I was introduced to Macs, and I'm using a Mac now. I've been using Mac literally since that time, which is about I don't know, 38 years ago.
Well, that's a bit of a departure then from what you currently do now. I mean, it's fair to say that you're morphing from one business and kind of adding on additional services from your current business. But when I first met you, however many years ago it was, you were the Keep Fit guy. So how did that come about?
Yeah, it was so long. Having left design in 2000, the end of 2000, I think it was, I knew I wanted to leave. I was kind of burnt out with the whole industry. And for probably the previous 5 years, and this is actually part of the conversation that's relevant to me now with some of this new stuff I'm doing, I really was unhappy and I wanted to find, if you like, find my purpose. I didn't have it related to as my purpose. I just knew I wanted to find something different to do. I was just completely disempowered and I'd lost all kind of passion for what I was doing.
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah. And I've been in design 20 years, pretty much, including my college years. And I felt like I could hit a wall pretty much. So I was offered redundancy. So I walked away with a healthy, what felt like a huge sum, but that went pretty quick. At that time, I got the two young children as well. I got, I think I'd got a 4 and a 5-year-old at that point. And I spent 2 years trying to find something, but within a few months, literally, with the first month, I thought, hang on a minute, this is going to be difficult. Because whatever you're going to do, you've got to retrain as. And I'd not really focused on anything. So, but at the same time, it was the kickstart for a load of other stuff changing. So we left South London, we moved up to near Cambridge, and there was me, my wife, and the 2 children, and we settled around Saffron Walden. And then eventually, having done a range of other things, I then actually through the children, I started doing karate. And I did very well in karate and got a real vigor again for fitness, which had been something that had been carried on since my early teens, really, which would have started as me playing football and then getting better at football as an early teen and then getting into other physical stuff. The karate I got really competitive at, and I'd actually got pretty good at for my age. And I was in my mid-40s, coming up to mid-40s, and I actually won. Would you believe? It's a very not particularly big tournament, but I won a bronze cup, an international bronze trophy in karate on the same day.
Yeah.
In the open tournament, which wasn't this is in my age group, by the way. Somebody kicked me, and I broke a tendon in my hand. And long story short, basically, I then found CrossFit because it was competitive, it was exciting, and it was different. And I'm not a big fan. And although I'd done okay going to regular gym sessions myself for years and years and years and trying to stay relatively strong, it wasn't until this competitive edge, which I'd honed a lot in karate, and proven to myself that I could, if you like, beat younger people who, through technique and speed and all these kind of. And I don't mean beat them to a pulp. I mean in set up tournaments.
Yeah.
I realized that the drive for winning, if you like, was really exciting in this new sort of fitness style that I'd come across. So I basically thought, right, I want to do that. And there was a fairly interesting way and relatively simple way of getting involved in it as well. So they really relate to all comers, whoever, whatever, it's very open, and the community spirit within the whole of the sort of CrossFit area is very, very community orientated and very open and, shall we say, forgiving to some degree to anybody that just comes along and wants to participate. They've got different sectors now that cater specifically for disabled athletes or wheelchair athletes. There's women's side, there's a men's side, there's a team part, there's a kids part, different age groups through kids. So it's very nurturing. So I love the whole concept of it. So I trained up in that, started my boot camp business, which is a relatively low cost way of entering into fitness classes. And then over the years since then, which started in 2012, which I'd have probably met you within the next year or two after that, probably a year and a half, maybe. Then I've done more PT. But one of the things, of course, which has always been in the background for me is the psychological aspect. And, for somebody, and this has happened to me many times, for somebody who was mid-40s training with a lot of younger people, something changes. And one of my mantras when I start boot camp, it doesn't matter how old you are. Age is kind of irrelevant. It's like weight to a great degree is irrelevant. People will hear this and go, what? Guess what? Weight is not really a significant factor in whether you're fit and healthy. It's actually nothing to do with it to a great degree. You could be 300 pounds, but you might be built like a tank. Literally nearly all muscle and bone, rather than, a fair amount of body fat. So in the same way, age is not dissimilar. So that's what was thing for me is, so a lot of my customers are, a lot of them are sort of middle-aged, one or two are a little bit older than me, but most of them are kind of my age or a little bit young, most of them a little bit younger than me.
So what you're finding with clients that are coming to you is the way that you can help them is, for me, as an example, it took me a long time to work out a fitness regime that worked for me, because what went on between my ears was keeping me from doing it. It's like, I can't be bothered. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go to the gym. The amount of gym memberships where I was keen for the first 6 weeks, and it took me a little while to work out, you're a people person. You should be doing stuff with people, not on your own. You need to be taking classes and blah, blah, blah. And eventually you find out what works for you. But I understand now, your main sort of audience that you kind of know that you can help specifically are those people that are kind of, as you say, middle-aged possibly, or have come to this FITR, fork in the road. I love this whole thing you've got on your logo there. For those of you listening to us, you find it on YouTube and you'll see the little logo that Simon's got. And so they've come to a fork in the road, and they know they've got to do something differently, because we know we have to be healthy. If the pandemic has taught us nothing else, we need to have a good immune system. We need to have, a healthy mind and a healthy body in order to fight off any sort of illness. And you're not just helping people get a healthy body, because, if you're doing a boot camp, that simulates to my mind, do as you're told, go through the pain barrier, and after 6 weeks, you'll be better. You probably can't keep that up for life. This is my way of thinking. And I know some people go, oh, look, I've lost all this weight, I'm going to keep on going, it's amazing. But in my mind, it's like, oh, if I've lost all this weight, I'll stop now. Thank you, I'm done. And lose it all and have to start all over again. So what do you find people come to you? What's is it a similar pattern? Is it that all the guys are thinking this and all the girls are thinking that? Or is it dependent on their background and their experience? Or do you think we're all in this boat of, you hit a certain point in life and you're like, what else is there?
No, so I think the main thing is the main thing to say is there's people are different. That's definitely, there's no, I wouldn't say there's any necessary oh, that's they're my customers. It's
Mm,
not, in some ways it's to do with them, the way I don't think like that particularly anyway too much.
mm,
But what I would say is a big part of, certainly, that I've had a relatively static group, certainly for the last year or so, especially because of the COVID situation.
mm,
And actually, probably for 3 years, I would say I've had a very similar set of people, as in the same people.
mm,
So to me, there's an element of camaraderie involved. And there's people know, and I actually relate to this now myself, in terms of, just like you said, I actually push myself more in a group situation, um, and knowing that is empowering, because you know that you're probably going to let yourself off. Guess what? As well, it's completely natural not to want to do this stuff, any stuff, because
mm,
we're human, and actually, it's
mm.
humans are not designed to. We're designed to be lazy and survive. Do you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah,
because we don't need to go out and hunt and gather, or move the tribe from position A up to the mountains for the summer and back down to the seaside for the winter, or
mm,
whatever it is. As a tribe, we can have easy lives.
mm,
So it's just the nature of our society to a great degree. So that's, and that's the situation for all sorts of ailments we have as well. Like tight backs, which people have a lot
yeah,
now, because we sat down most of the day and we don't
yeah,
even get up to go up and down the stairs, or even get in the elevator, and having got out the car or off the train once we got to work, because we're not going to work. We can just
mm,
the front room or into the office or the study.
yeah,
So that's why me myself, for the first few months when we went into COVID last year, I wasn't doing a lot of fitness stuff, because guess what? I can't go to my class. We're all human, and
mm,
the thing is, for me, I know personally, I know that I can recover it, because I know when I get my mindset right and I'm in the right position to do it, I'll be able to switch it back on again. And I've started doing that literally this week as well. So I'm back into doing more regular exercise myself. But in terms of my customers, they there's so community kind of friendships start to happen even on Zoom. People know they're kind of pulling each other along on a Zoom class because they've turned up, and there's this kind of drive to kind of work out together. And
mm,
the kind of community spirit part of it even it's not as strong, don't get me wrong, and you're not physically with the people. You can't have quite the same laugh and joke about things as you're doing things. But
mm,
my boot camps as well, one thing I should say is my boot camps are not really I'm not a traditional boot camp. It's
no.
always been, I've been literally thinking for years I need to change the name, but I've never come up with anything better. And the problem is with a name, you'll know this, you say the term BNI, if they change the name, they haven't changed the name for one reason. It's got a load of worth in the name.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been the long-standing boot camp in Saffron Walden, which I'm proud of,
Mm,
for 8.5 years now, nearly 9 years in
mm,
total. And had I thought that was going to still be going when I first started, I'm quite surprised it's still going. But
mm,
yeah, so I'm kind of skirting around what you asked me. I apologize, but there are my classes are like if you know what strength and conditioning is, which is really a more technical view of movement.
mm,
And actually, some way, so if you watch one of my classes and watched a CrossFit class, because I'm a CrossFit coach, I can't call my classes CrossFit classes, and they're not specifically like a CrossFit class, but they're more similar to a CrossFit class than they are to a boot camp,
right.
because I don't use things like tires and hammers and kind of, if you like, some of the other kind of industrial stuff I started using initially,
Yeah.
because I just can't afford. Well, people don't have it in their front room right now.
No.
So we're doing much more kind of strength and conditioning work, and I was moving more towards that anyway in the previous few years before we had the COVID thing start.
Yeah.
And I really resonate with what you said, and this is the interesting thing for you to get and everybody else to get, is that doing the work doesn't happen if you don't make yourself do it, which is
Mm,
all about your brain.
mm,
It's got nothing to do with you moving your body, which is why if you want to change something, anything, you have to decide to do it, or at least reason with yourself find out what's really stopping you. And this is where we move on to where I am now to some degree, because the simplest things will be stopping you. It
Yeah.
could be you're frightened. A lot of people, when they say the word boot camp, oh no, I can't do that.
No,
They don't even know what my boot camp's like.
no. It just sounds like Sergeant Major going to be yelling at you. Oh,
Yeah.
no,
And
no, it's not
it's
going to
not
happen.
like that at all. I'll be honest with you. I'm busy laughing at you. No. I'm busy having. Usually, I try and have a laugh with people, but
Yeah.
I'm rigorous about how they move and the quality of their movement.
Yes.
I don't want people throwing themselves around, despite the fact I sound like a boot camp. I really don't want people to do things that they can't control their body doing. And the thing about that is, it's a brain thing. So the brain has to know how to move the body safely before they can be let loose doing a particular movement. So it's actually in some ways nothing to do with the physical part of it. It's to do
Yeah.
with, is your brain wired properly to get you to do the movement?
Mm.
So, and repetition, practice, this is where literal practice comes in, obviously, because build
That's
that
why I
fire.
always feel sorry. You see these TV programs, don't you, where there's people ridiculously overweight and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
and then they make them go for a 5 mile run. And I'm like,
yeah,
I can't even do a 1 mile run.
yeah,
Why would they be able to do a 5 mile run? And why are you
yeah,
putting them through this just for the TV to watch
yeah.
them
You've
suffer?
hit a trigger point with me and on that, because running for me, it's a great exercise. Don't get me wrong.
Mm,
If you couch to 5K, okay, but really, if you've not done anything else for 10 years and you
mm,
decide to do couch to 5K, you're putting a load of stress. If you're assuming you're a little bit heavier, because most people do it because they think they want to lose weight,
yeah.
when actually they should be doing steady movement, which is controlled. They won't mess their joints up. They won't
Mm,
cause some sort of muscle problem, just tear a muscle that's just not been used that way for 10 years.
yeah.
They will actually control their movement. And then they need to focus 80% of the work on their diet and being conscious of what they're eating, because that's the biggest contributor to any of this.
Mm,
Any what you class as overweight or body fat, I'd class it as body fat. It's not overweight. You're carrying excess body fat,
yeah.
whether it's internal or external, because there's, some of the skinniest people are some of the most unhealthy because they're carrying a lot of internal
Yes.
fat indoors, which is why sometimes just through genetics, people, you'll have heard those people who are skinny and fit who've suddenly dropped dead at 50.
Yep.
They're actually avid runners who just are fatiguing their body and don't realize in the wrong way, and their body's gone into kind of starvation mode probably,
Yeah.
but they're still
Yeah.
strong and can still run for miles, but it's just not the right thing for them to be doing. So
Interesting.
I'm a big believer in diet. Well, it's not really, it's science. Diet is 80% of the work, in terms of body fat management, actually just general health, because the quality of the food you eat in the right proportions will have a huge effect on your actual your ability to perform as a human and stay alive for longer.
Mm,
And then the actual movement stuff is down to, for me, especially as I've got older, it's strength is the focus,
mm.
because ultimately, for me, one of the reasons that is to some degree, to a great degree, is that the old story of I think it was at least two of my older relatives fell out the back doorstep and broke hips.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because they're not strong enough to hold themselves up.
Yeah.
And this is many years ago now, but
Yeah.
so I don't want to be that person. Anyway, I'm
No,
starting
no, I'm just
to get
looking
on
at
my
my notes
soapbox
here
here.
because
I should be slightly more quiet and let you ask another question.
there are so many things here that I've got written in my notes, and I'm just kind of looking at the time, thinking, we haven't got a huge amount of time left, but there's certain things I want to pull out of you. Um, and I'm just thinking of the fitness. Actually, it's got me thinking now. It's really interesting about the you are weight. You're not overweight. There is a weight, and it's whether that weight is healthy or unhealthy for you. I like that.
That's why weight doesn't work. That's why body fat ideally is a much better measurement. And if you're jumping on the scales and having a word with yourself in the morning, guess what? You're just demeaning yourself.
Yes.
You are not empowering yourself by staring at the scales going, oh, I'm only 1 pound lower than yesterday. Don't do it. Don't even go there. There's a much
Crazy.
better way of doing it.
You know what I used to do? I mean, when I basically threw away the scales when I had my first daughter, because the doctor said to me on one of my checkups, and I had this like 6-week-old baby, she said, have you got a set of scales? I went, yeah, yes, throw them away.
Yeah.
Takes 9 months to create a baby. It will take you 9 months to get your body back. Don't even worry
Yeah.
about it. Don't even think
Yeah.
about it. Don't try it. Don't get on the scales. And
Yeah.
then after a few years, I did get some scales and I did try them out. And I realized how brain dead was I, that I've lost 2 pounds. Woohoo! I can have a cream donut. I've
Yeah.
gained
Yeah.
2 pounds. Oh no, I'm going to have a cream
Yeah. Yeah.
donut.
Yeah.
And
And the
it's like,
biggest thing
why
about
are you
that,
looking?
the
It's
thing
crazy.
is, one of the biggest problems with that, and especially women, is, you'll know this, as you go through the monthly cycle, you actually retain more fluid.
Yeah, yeah.
Body fat, your body weight, even as a man as well, your body weight fluctuates day to day at different times of the day.
Yeah.
And it's just not a measure that's really of any use.
Mm.
You think people of the industry, Weight Watchers specifically, where's their brand right now? In terms of wording, because I'm a word guy. Weight Watchers, no, not Weight Watchers. Do something else.
Yeah, they've been around such a long time though, haven't they? And
Oh yeah, and again, it's a brand thing, and they have shifted stuff a little bit, but it's just, you shouldn't be going anywhere near scales, really.
No.
Literally just go like that. Or go buy your trousers.
I was just going to
Or
say,
your
I've got 3
your
pairs of
belt.
jeans. There's the skinny jeans, there's the fat jeans, and what one are you on? And then
Yeah.
how you're doing.
Yeah.
But you've moved on from this as well, haven't you? From the point of view of knowing the mindset to work out and be healthy, and the food that you need, and you were talking about sleep and water earlier on when we were having a chat beforehand, how important these things are. There's many elements to creating this optimum health so that you can fight off infections and viruses. But one of the things, just briefly, I'm going to sort of park that because it is a whole other podcast on its own, really. It's what I'm fascinated by is what we did together a little while ago around how powerful words are that you either currently use or you could be using to shape how you see your future, but also how you view your past. Now, as a coach and different programs that I've been on over the years, because you look back and donkey's years worth of investment into your own personal development, you realize that you tell yourself stories, you look back at your life, and there have been the stories that you have developed so that there becomes a truth about them, where in reality, they are made up. They are things that you assume have happened. And you can have this, as you said, layers of an onion of your life that you need to kind of peel back to reevaluate and see where it came from, where the pain is, where the upset is, how you can heal it, how you can forgive and move on. And we went through a really interesting exercise that you asked me to do as can I show you what I do? And I was like, go on then.
Were you?
But
how rude.
No, I know, very rude, very rude.
I need to be more perceptive.
Well, no, this is kind of, if you imagine how many people ask me that question, right? And mostly I say no. To be fair, mostly I say no. And yet there was something about you that I thought and I want to be open. So although when you asked me, my reaction was like, oh, I've peeled my onion. I know my shit. It's fine. But I thought, oh, come on then, let's see. So I came to what we did with a very open heart and an open mind and a willingness to learn.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by the simplicity, but the power of that simplicity and how it impacted me at that time and going forward since then. And I would thoroughly recommend anybody to get involved with that. So tell me how you developed this little idea and just briefly what it is, because I think it was
so I've actually done a specific course led by a gentleman who's been in this work, this specific practice, which he's developed as a brand now, which is directed primarily at fitness coaches, actually, primarily, but it works for everybody in terms of who comes along. And the interesting thing about it is, I'm just trying to think, I've not really thought of this as an example, but if you think about that first voice that you hear in the morning when you wake up, that's the voice. That voice in your head is the voice that has you. And then you'll hear it straight away. Oh hell, it's the morning, and whatever it is, whatever you hear, then it's what in the course that I did, they call it Billy. And Billy is the character that basically is like your ego mind to some degree.
Yeah.
But he always does what's he always got a great reason not to do this or to do that. Or he's the really judgmental one about you mostly, but also about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, if you like, your ego is created by the experiences you had and the choices and decisions you made about what the world is like and what it's about. And that in itself is literally a little narrative in your head. It's words and language. That's all it is. And it's mapped in your head as the reality that is your world, that your perception of the world is led predominantly. Everything you do, everything you relate to goes through that filter of words and sentences that Billy says to you in your head. So if you like, it's the monkey brain. People relate to it as different things.
Yeah.
But the fact is, that's where the stories are the most important. And so the story work session that I ran with you, and it's a simple session. It's not changed. It's not going to change for a long time.
Works, why fix it?
It's powerful because I relate to you as a person, and you'll tell me a problem, and then I'll pick. You'll come to me with like you did, a story to work on, one particular story that you think that's what I want to talk about, and I will listen to you, and I'll go, but what you've said there, where did that come from? Tell me about that particular part of that sentence there, or that sentence from your story. Tell me in the past where that's come up before, when you can remember that being powerful, which again is a story from your past that had an effect on you because you remember it. And if you didn't remember it, it wouldn't be important. And it might be then that we look into that story, or we might get some statements from that story as I log these down, and they all need to be written down, by the way. This is all written down so you can log it and reflect it, just like in journaling. From that point of view, you then go, okay, does this feel like the powerful moment, the powerful story? Then we write that out, and then we work on that story. And that if anybody who comes to me is almost certainly guaranteed not to work on what they think they're going to work on, because their perception is, this is the reality, this is my problem. No, it's built on something else, which is the bedrock of yourself, who you are, which is why it gets so powerful in a very short space of time.
Yes, because it really didn't take very long at all, did it? And you know yourself, you go to different personal development weekends away in a retreat here or something there, and it takes 3 days, and really it's the last half an hour that nails half the problems, isn't it? But this was, I don't know, was it 2.5 hours, something like that.
Well, we had a long session, but because we were being very open, and kind of we drifted off a little bit in places, but we pulled it back. And I was doing a lot of explanation, I think, as well, a fair amount of explanation. And we can both talk like we're doing now, probably for hours. And you know, and every session is a unique opportunity to literally get people to go, oh my God, I've had that in there for all these years. So, and the way to relate to it is, my Billy, he's been saying that to me for all these years. And then you start to go, oh, that's why I felt like that when that happened. And this probably happened to you. I'm not really had a catch-up session with you, but you probably had that realization of the perception of that particular statement that will have worked on, the opening that it created in your perception of your world allowed you to start to see other stuff. And if you imagine doing 10 of those sessions, or 6 or 8 of those sessions, which is what I do with customers, you have a whole new, almost like to somebody, you could have a new identity about how you relate to your whole world.
So if you've had this
part of it anyway,
negative / victim / my cup's half empty mentality, and then you work out where it's all come from, it is this like what's the expression, you can see again, you know, it's like being born again, or you know, you're trying your life on with a new coat. But it was for me, it was I saw one particular incident in a new context, and from another person's perspective, which it kind of made me it was a moment. Oh wow. And I'd gone out, it wasn't as though I hadn't gone through that scenario or that area of my life before and had put it to bed, as I thought. But this was almost like tucking it in and fluffing down the eiderdown and making sure the pillows were nice and plumped. It was just finishing it off. But it was allowed me to do that because I saw it from a totally new context and from the other person's perspective. So, you know, I would thoroughly recommend anybody to try it out. If there's something that, if you're coming up repeatedly against the same problem. I remember saying to somebody once, we got out of the car and my friend was across the way, the car park, and I just yelled at, "Hi, Fee, how you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm fine. It's all them others that's the problem." I was like, who's the common denominator here, hun?
Exactly. And the thing is, the really interesting thing with that is we can see that person doing it, but when we do it, we don't see it. Exactly. Because in our world, that's the truth.
So what I'm saying is, if you find you're coming up against the same problem again and again, who's the common denominator? You know,
absolutely.
Kind of go, okay, all right, I don't think it's me, but if I want to stop this problem happening, maybe I need to do a bit of exploration and see.
One of the things I want to just add about the story work sessions that we did and the ones I do with people is we always come out with some specific statements that we call them translations, which literally take some of the negative, what's usually a negative perspective of what happened, and we do this is where the magic happened. It's actually called a mystical translation, we believe, because it usually does that flip of that perspective shift, but it leaves you with a really powerful statement to take into your life that you can literally live from in that particular area, and it could have relationships to all sorts of areas in your other areas of your life as well, depending how it's wired inside you. And that's why between sessions I like to allow a good 10 days, 2 weeks to let things filter in. And titration was a term which is from the scientific community, which is about filtering through, but it's actually quite specific to that filtering of energy through in experiments. And this, in a way, this is changing all the time. This is changing all the time. We are literally changing all of the time. Although we perceive ourselves as solid and in reality the same, we are literally organically changing, thought wise and physical wise, as is the universe. So it's, sorry, I've gone a bit woo woo. Come back.
we do like a bit of woo woo, but I think we're going to have to woo woo in part 2.
Thank you.
And I'm going to call it to a halt now. It's a lovely place to call it to a halt. I think the fork in the road is a brilliant concept, and for people to get in touch with you to find out more how they can make the most of the rest of their life, whether that be through their health and their wellness, or whether it can be maybe putting some of these beasts to bed that we have nightmares about. How would people get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So my email is simon@simondrew.net. So you can certainly email me. The Fitter Life program has its own page, which is a kind of a landing page, and there are various buttons on there which you can click it to get a discovery call with me, and you can do that of our email as well. But yeah, there's fitterlife.net, which is a one word, fitterlife. .net, which is the landing page for the program that I'm putting together, and I'm on Instagram as coach.simon.drew. And if any of you guys out there that are watching do Instagram, I'd appreciate you come and say hi. One of the things I've started to use a lot of is verbal messages. So drop me a message, text me, and I'll drop you some verbal stuff. And I'm happy to discuss how this work that I'm doing right now might be able to be useful in terms of helping you achieve something.
And for those of you on audio as opposed to video, Fitter Life is FITR Life, LIFE. And of course, if you wanted to meet Simon in person, he is generally to be found on the last Tuesday of the month at Collaboration Global Sessions. They are 3 till 5 UK time, and you can find them on Eventbrite, or you can go to our website, which is collaborationglobal.org. My name has been Jill Tiny, and I've had a lovely time with Simon Drew. Thank you so much for joining me, Simon. It's been brilliant. It's
been awesome.
And we'll see you again for part 2 another day.
Oh, yes, please. Take care. See you soon. Have a great weekend. Cheers then.